everybody. Welcome to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And Ted Bannock, who likes talking about cards, he's at Gen Con, so we're recording this without him. But if you want to know all about Gen Con and his experiences there, you can check out our Around the Community episode for July and see all about that. But today, Grant, what card are we going to talk about?
We're talking about Tactics Bilbo, the 9-cost, 1 willpower, 1 attack power, 2 defense, 2 hit points Hobbit from the Mount Gundabad set.
Yeah. So, what do you think?
Now, if I remember rightly, we both looked at this card when it first got spoiled, and we both said we liked it. And that hasn't really changed from my perspective. I still like the card, and I still value it more than I do Low Bilbo. Low Bilbo just was overcosted for what he does. This version, I think what he does for the 9 cost is good. It's not great, but it's still very good.
What? Not great? Oh my god. Man. Okay. So first of all, let's make sure that we set ourselves straight. For the viewers out there, we made one big mistake when we talked about Bilbo. And the big mistake is that we said that Bilbo can target immune enemies, but that's incorrect. No matter what, if an enemy is immune to player card effects, nothing can target it, and that was our fault. So Bilbo can only target enemies that are not immune to player card effects, which is still a significant number of enemies. But let me just tell you that this ability that Bilbo has, where he can add the threat, or he can take the threat and add that to his willpower of an enemy in the staging area, like, that is amazing to me and how I've played it. We rated this guy in a spoiler episode, and I remember giving him a 2 because I really I think I gave him a 2. Great, you could probably go look it back up. But what I loved about it is that his abilities now matched his cost, his threat cost, or I guess his attributes match his threat cost, and even after that episode, we literally recorded the episode about 45 minutes. I remember that particular episode. It was about 45 minutes after the release of the article, so of the spoiler article. And so since then, a couple rulings came out, is that if you can remove Bilbo Baggins from the quest using what are the cards that you use with Hobbit Pony, and then you can use Late Adventurer to recommit him. You can actually do the thing, his response twice, because now you're committing him to the quest twice. So the thing that I loved about him is actually what I still love about him, and that dealing 1 damage to the enemy, like, that is, to me, phenomenal. Like, that 1 damage thing really helps out, because there are some enemies that you can target, and yeah, it may only be a 1 increase in your willpower for questing, but in essence, you're canceling out that enemy's willpower, plus you're able to do the 1 damage provided you quest successfully. Now that's the key here with Tactics Bilbo, is being able to figure out a way to quest successfully. And so you have to really pair him with things that go to quest successfully. There's a trap that came out recently. I think it's called Followed. Let me make sure that I have that right. I'll pull that up here on Hall of Beorn.
Right, and just for your personal reference, you did rate it a 2, David.
Okay, right, and so So if you play the tactics trap followed, you put that in your play area. You get to reduce the total threat by X in the staging area, where that attached enemy is X. So that's a way to mitigate threat in the staging area that's in sphere, that's tactics. And then you can do all sorts of other shenanigans after that. But I still think that his ability is great, because there's so many times when you're sitting there playing and there's like a 3 or 4 cost threat cost enemy out there that is that's just tearing you up. And this, in essence, gets rid of that enemy for you in terms of threat. And I just love that.
Okay. So what do you pair with Bilbo then, while we're getting on with it?
Well, I mean, so it's not a secret that I tried to put together a all tactics deck, right? And so an all tactics Hobbit deck, and that didn't work out too well. But I did find out that Tom Cotton does work, and if you're going to play with the guarded cards, those guarded cards, that little bit of extra thing for guarded, if it's guarded by an enemy, like that extra point of damage that it does is great for releasing guarded cards, because not all enemies in a deck, in a counter deck, have 12 hit points. They may have 3 or 4 or 5 hit points, so you may have to keep it in the staging area 2 turns. But typically, if you're using Hobbit or Hobbit Hero and some other things like that, those Hobbit heroes have low starting threat, so that means you will be able to not engage enemies right away, and you can kind of do that. I don't know. I think the Tactics Bilbo may get better the more people you play with. Like, there may be a sweet spot in there. I don't know, because I don't play multiplayer all that often, but I just feel like there's if you put Sting into the deck, which is a guarded card, but it's guarded enemy. It has to be an enemy. So if that comes out, now Sting kind of goes well on Bilbo, but if you're going to put Sting on a Hobbit, I found the best Hobbit to put it on is Tom Cotton, because he defends, and you get the boost to defense, and then you can do the 1 damage back, and plus he can. There's so. As opposed to putting on Bilbo, which typically, if you're going to put it on Bilbo, you're going to use him to quest, right? And so then you get the 1, so you're able to. You're not going to get the bonus and the extra damage that Sting is going to give you. So,
unless you've got multi ways of readying characters,
like fast hitch or whatever you have going on. So when you use Bofur, you get to exhaust him to look for a weapon attachment. And then you put that in your hand. So Bofur, if you're looking for a weapon attachment, some of those guarded attachments are weapons, and so you can Sting, especially. Again, if you're thinking of tactics, you get to use Bofur to bring him out. Now, the one thing about Bofur, I found that if you're using Sting, or if you're using Bilbo and Bofur is a dwarf with is a tactics card with 2 willpower. So there's not a lot of 2 willpower dudes out there in tactics to use allies, I guess. So, I'm sure you could use Tactics Eowyn. That's probably a good even Spirit Eowyn, because once you get into the having the Spirit access, that gives you access to 11Zs and Hobbit Pony and Late Adventurer and all that stuff, where you can commit Bilbo a couple of times to the quest and really use his ability so yeah. So I'm still high on Bilbo, except that you can't put him into a tactics Hobbit deck. That I have found it's really hard to pull off.
Yeah, I've found that Bilbo, although being a hobbit, that ninth threat does kind of deter me from playing him with the usual assortment of hobbits, likes of Sam and Pippin. I have built a deck running Sam, Pippin, and Bilbo, and playing Sting on Sam because he's got that natural readying. But outside of that, I generally play them with a high questing deck. So, along with Spirit Eowyn or Glorfindel, just to get that little added extra willpower. So that way I'm always questing successfully. I'm always pulling the damage off. And I mean, sometimes I'm not even looking for the damage. It's just that extra boost to questing.
Yeah, in essence, when I play Tactics Bilbo, I take the enemy that I'm targeting and I just put it up. I like move it from like the regular line in the staging area, and I move it up, and then I know that enemy is canceled out in terms of its threat. And if you're playing solo, you're only revealing one encounter card, so you may not get an enemy. So you only may have one enemy in there in the staging area. And that, I mean, it's I don't know, like I'm really happy with the way Bilbo works out. Now, the question I have for you is, how do you play Bilbo with the guarded cards? Do you put a ton of guarded cards in there, or do you not put a ton of guarded cards in?
I generally split the guarded cards because I play more multiplayer than I do solo. If I'm running guarded cards, I generally try to split them up between the two decks I run in. Or I'll put them in the sideboard so that if I'm playing with multiple people, I'll load up my deck and then I can see what guarded cards they're running and then put the ones in that I need for my deck and say, well, these are the ones I've got that I run in this deck. And I'll run it like that, but generally I'll split them up. So I'll have like two or three in one deck and the other deck has one or two. It depends on what deck I'll run and what. Generally with Bilbo, I'll run the Mithril Shirt and Sting and possibly either Orcrist or Glamdring. Mm-hmm. And then the other deck, I'll run probably the other sword along with the Necklace of Girion.
Right. The Necklace of Girion isn't that the one that all unique enemies get, or all unique allies get +1 willpower?
No, that's the Arkenstone you're thinking of. The Necklace of Girion gives you +2 willpower and an extra resource.
Plus the extra resource, right? Yeah, the Arkenstone, I have found, is a great guarded attachment. Like, I love the Arkenstone. Basically, it's an attachment, it's an attachment Faramir, which is great if you're playing it in the right deck.
Yeah. I think with the new cards that have come out in the Shadows of the East, this built version of Bilbo is only going to get better and stronger.
I don't think that when you're playing Bilbo that you necessarily just start throwing in all the guarded attachments. I think the Arkenstone is good with Bilbo. I think that Sting can be good with Bilbo, but I don't because it's guarded enemy, not necessarily because of its ability, because you may not want to put Sting onto Bilbo. Like, you may want to thematically, but it may not be the place to put it.
You could always, even though you're saying that Sting is not always great on Bilbo, you're forgetting that Sting also gives you a +1 to all his stats. So it might be a good place to put it.
Well, that's why I said that it can be good to go on to Bilbo, but there may be better targets. It doesn't necessarily have to. Like, when I was playing, I found that Tom Cotton was the place to put Sting, because Sting also does the 1 damage. He gives him +1 to everything, but it also does that 1 damage. Which, if you're doing that if you're using Bilbo, typically you're going to want to use Bilbo to quest, right? And so Sting doesn't do 1 point of damage when he quests. He only does 1 point of damage when you attack or defend. So you lose out on that ability if you put Sting onto Bilbo, unless you can ready him and things like that. So
yeah, and generally, if you're doing that, you are running some sort of readying effects. You're generally either using him for his ability or you're using him for that 2 defense.
I think if you're using him for his 2 defense, you're probably not using him right. That's in my opinion.
Well,
I mean, he's got 2 defense and 2 hit points, so he's pretty squishy.
He is, but then once you get Friend of Friends out there, Boots of Erebor, Sting or Ringmail, he becomes quite a solid defender.
Yeah, but so does anybody with any Hobbit with that junk on him, like Hobbit cloak.
Well, yeah,
but so yeah, I guess the thing is that I would rather use Bilbo as my quester in a deck where I'm using Bilbo.
Fair enough. So we're ready to ring him.
We're going to revisit. So this is kind of an interesting thing, right? Because this is the first card that we have actually gone back and revisited when we did a spoiler. Yeah, we revisited Gandalf with Ted when we invited Ted on the show to set us straight on that. But we also... it's the first time we've actually done the card twice, right?
Yep, that's correct.
So anyways, I guess we should ring this guy, right? We've blathered on long enough.
Yep.
Okay, so for anybody who's new to the show or needs a little reminder, remember we have a highly arbitrary yet scientific system where we rate a card where 1 is the one card to rule them all, and 10 is where we cast that card back in the fiery chasm from whence it was made. So, Grant, do you want to go first or second? It's weird without Ted here. Now that I've kind of gotten used to Ted, so it's like now I have to. I mean, it's always good to go back to throwback, but I'm like all my hosting stuff is off a little bit. But anyways, do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
You'll go second. Okay. So here's what I'll do. I've played, now that I've played with Hero Bilbo, Tactics Hero Bilbo, I have, I think he's still almost as good as I thought he was going to be. I don't think he fits in a ton of decks as much, and I also think that his guarded stuff is, what do I want to say, not as
potent.
Yeah, it's not as potent as I thought it was going to be. When I first read the article, and now that I've played with the guarded, not that it's not great, because it's great fun. It's just that guarded makes the challenge a little bit different. So I'm going to back off the rating just a smidge, but not much. So now that I've played with it, I'm going to give Bilbo a 3 rings. So Grant, what do you think?
I'm sticking with my original rating of 3 rings because I like them and I've used them in a fair number of decks, and he does what he says he's going to do. So I'm going to keep me rating of 3 rings.
Okay, there you have it. I say 3 and Grant says 3, and I'm sure Ted somewhere at Gen Con is saying 3 rings. I say 3 rings. No, I don't know what he's going to say. But there you have it, and join us again as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed cardtalk2018.libsyn.org for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.